Here's the thing. Most of us have a purpose. I think all of us have a purpose. It doesn't require two near-death experiences for us to find that purpose. But when you experience those things, man, it's like pressure on coal into a diamond, and you're about to meet a diamond. Scott Harris, next on Purpose Under Pressure. The heat is on. Let's get cooking. This is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about people just like you and me. We swing our feet out of bed every single morning on purpose. We put them on the floor. We go do what we do. And then the storms rise and try to knock us down. And it almost happens every day. At least it does to me, usually to my guests. And we're going to talk about that today on Purpose Under Pressure. If you're watching this now, it means that you're brand new to it, or maybe you've watched it many, many times. If you get a chance, would you like us or follow us or subscribe or tell your mom or tell somebody or let people know that this show is worth listening to? I'm trying to make an impact in people's lives. And the more people that listen, well, that's how that gets done. So I appreciate that effort if you would do so. Purpose Under Pressure is brought to you by Sandler by the Ruby Group, serving sales professionals nationwide from their Akron and Columbus, Ohio locations. They have been here since the beginning with Purpose Under Pressure, and I'm so happy to say that they are partners with everything that we're doing here. They are one of the highest performing Sandler sales training affiliates in the nation. Last I checked, they were number 2. That's pretty awesome. I think they're shooting for number 1, and that's just because they're great at what they do. If you've got a sales team, if you're looking for ways to improve your business, it's worth a call, and they'd be happy to talk with you. You can check them out online at therubygroup.sandler.com, and I hope you will. I can't wait for you to meet our guest today. He's been a friend of mine. We were just talking before the show since like 30 years or so, like since 1992. And we have struck up a relationship and a friendship that doesn't need to be fostered every single day. Sometimes we go years without speaking, but we bounce right back and catch up like we never left. He's just a good dude. And I'm excited for you to meet Scott Harris. He's the owner of Bill Harris Auto Center. They have 3 locations in Ashland, 2 here in Ashland City, 1 in Loudonville. His father, you will know, and he's also the namesake of Bill Harris Auto Center, was Ohio State Senator Bill Harris, the founder of Bill Harris Auto Center. He has played a significant role in my life as well, even before, or at least during the time that I was getting to know Scott. So the apple doesn't far from the tree. Good people in the Harris family, and I welcome you, Scott Harris, to the Purpose Under Pressure podcast.
Hey, Brian.
Hi, Scott. Welcome to the show. I'm really glad you're there. It's nice just to see you show up on the camera because I've been trying to get you to share your story forever, and you're so humble. You just kept saying, nah, no one wants to hear from me.
You know what? It's just so funny. I think I've known you so well, and I've watched you do. I can't tell you how many of these shows I've watched, but I've watched your shows so many times. And then I thought, man, what an honor. Brian wants me to get on that thing. Because, you know, you could be buddies, but it's not, It's just not the right thing, right? And then when you asked me a couple of times, I'm like, oh, man, I would be honored. Then we just couldn't make the dates work. And then now finally, I was told Lily, I said, I think I've been more excited about this over the last week or so, getting ready for it. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, here's the problem, Scott. Some people get mad at me because I find soft spots and I dig in deep, and then they don't ever want to talk to me again. So let's not let that happen. Yeah. If I make you mad, we'll be friends later.
We're always going to be buddies. Yeah, that's the cool part about our relationship, right? I think we can always come back together. So
I think one of the reasons people do get along in that kind of a way is because things match up. Their purpose matches up. Their vibes on life match up. And they just, you have a kinship and you just get along for a lot of different reasons. I'm interested. Let's go ahead and start. This is Purpose Under Pressure. I already know it. But Scott, tell me a little bit about your purpose, what you're doing here on this planet, what you're trying to accomplish on a daily basis. What is your purpose, Scott?
Thinking about that, the purpose part, I think my purpose, I do know today, is serving Jesus and serving that gospel and that good news. And it is simply that good news. That wouldn't have been the case, as you know, many years ago. That wouldn't have been the case with me. I got saved very late in life. But I do, and I'm utterly convinced as I look back over my life, and I can look at this point at my age backwards, I know this was not by coincidence. It was destined by Jesus Christ. This is how this was going to work out. Everything from who I married, the the whole thing. I mean, there's not a part of it wasn't part of his plan.
There's a piece about you, Scott, and anybody that knows you can tell it. There's a piece about you that, I've been around car dealerships. I was a car salesman for a couple of years of my life. I saw how stressful and sometimes underhanded and things that needed to be done to get things done that I didn't like. There's a piece about you that is tangible, that I just know that you have faith that everything is working out for a reason and everything is going to be just fine because God is good. Is that kind of an accurate description?
Yeah, I think you're right. And Brian, it's so funny you bring that up because as you say that, I can think back my early years in this business. I didn't have that peace. That was before I knew Christ. And my purpose then, as a young man, and really I thought my only purpose is my dad found out, hey, you're a pretty good salesman. You're going to work out well for me. And and so I did. But I also can tell you I was hard on people. Yeah, I can tell you I was hard on people. People that if I saw them, I've seen many since, not all, and I've had to go back and say to them, I was hard on you, man, and I'm sorry. My language was horrible, and I spoke, I didn't with customers. You know what I'm saying? It's that other, it's that back end side, and that's not who Christ wants us to be. He wants us to be true on either side. That's very difficult. I know that, and as I say that, I know there's people out there say, work is work and church is church. And that's not true. Our business has to be more like church, and church needs to be more like business in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Opportunities. It's opportunities to reach people and talk to people. And it's interesting. And this show has taught me a lot about purpose. And I'm pretty convinced that if you're not operating on purpose, if you don't have a goal, or if you're not bound to some kind of a value, or if there's not something driving you, yeah, Scott, you can start doing whatever you need to do to get things done. People say, what's purpose under pressure about? Well, when the pressure comes that wants to knock you off, if you're easily knocked off, if you'll do whatever to anybody just to get what you need done in that moment,
yes.
Well, you just folded under pressure. Your purpose wasn't rock strong.
It's gone.
I'm interested, Scott, if you can talk to me. I want to talk about two things, I think. I want to get to how you stay a good man now on purpose and strong, even though things are hard. They still are. But I also want to see what formed you. Can we talk a little bit about how you realized that, holy cow, man, this is not me? What drove you maybe to be in that state in the first place, what you learned and how you became on purpose? This is where the early pressure, I think, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to condense it down because there's a lot to it. And if anybody's curious, we can sit and talk, right? Maybe you can come and they can come and we can have a whole conversation. But
that'd be awesome.
I can tell you August 1st, 2011 was the first time I was working out. My heart stopped on me while I was warming up on a treadmill. They had life flight me to Cleveland. All that stuff aside, which I didn't know, that took place, by the way, because when your heart stops, you just don't, you're not functioning anymore. And so they life flighted me to Cleveland. I woke up. I did wake up on that Monday. There's no clear mind to me about that. I have to go back to Lily. She tells me how it all happened. I think I really became really conscious about Wednesday after I was there for a couple of days and after they had done a major surgery and everything else. And I don't say this haphazardly, but the Cleveland Clinic, fabulous. They're skilled in what they do, and that's where they had life flighted me. But I'm going to tell you, Brian, I came in the presence of Christ. And I had been saved. I got saved around 1996, 97. 1997, actually. It was March of 97, and I was with Jim Hess. And that's him and my dad tried leading me to Christ so many times, and I used to tell them all the time to bug off because I didn't want anything to do with it, and I'll explain why in a second. But anyway, that presence, when that happened, and that what people think must have been a horrendous time in my life, I'm going to tell you something, Brian, that was the most fantastic experience of my life when I came in the presence of Christ. I don't seem like I see you, but like a bright light. And when he assured me who I was, he talked to me about me. He didn't say, hey, by the way, that friend of yours, Brian, he needs to do this or he needs to do that. He didn't say any of that. He talked to me about me and my sin. And it is sin. It's not a mistake. It's not my issue. It's sin. And he spoke to me about it. And he said to me, Scott, there are consequences to that sin, and there's people you've affected. It changed everything. I was free that day. When I woke up, I told them I was leaving on Friday. And the clinic said, oh, no, you're probably going to be here a couple of weeks or so. Christ, in his strength, I walked out of there that Friday. And they couldn't believe it.
Did you meet Christ before you woke up? So your heart stopped. Here's the way I think I heard it. Your heart stopped. You didn't know anything else. And then you woke up. In between, you met Christ, and he said those things to you in an unconscious state. Yeah.
Yeah, I came in his presence.
Did you know what you meant? Did you know what he meant when he said you've hurt people? Like, were you consciously unconscious? Do you understand what I'm saying? Were you consciously having a conversation with him, even though you were unconscious at the time?
You don't conversate. I was on my knees, bowed down. There was others there. I was praying and giving praise and glory to him as he spoke to me. But he didn't get, he wasn't saying, hey, let's discuss life and all the worldly issues, right? Like who should be the president and all that kind of, you'll hear all kinds of stuff. No, he just spoke to me. He spoke into me and to me. I'm telling you, Brian, it was the most fantastic. It's hard to explain. We don't have time. I just want you to know, I cannot describe to you in words the most miraculous change in my life was that time.
Why you, Scott? Lots of people have issues like that. Why you?
I think because as a young child, you did tap it, didn't you? Well, as a young child, I was abused as a kid, about 4 years old, by a neighbor. And no one knew. And I didn't want anything to happen to my little sister because she took care of both of us. So I tried to always get her attention. And I can honestly tell you today, and I'd have to step forward on that and it'd take time, but I know that evil spirit then tried to possess, it did possess me. And it took me over as a young child. And as I grew as a young child and then into young, as a young person and then as a young adult, you have to realize I wanted nothing to do with Jesus. There was no question I knew there was a God. There was no question that spirit made me aware that there was a Jesus.
You just didn't want any part of it.
I wanted no part of him.
It's not that you didn't believe. It's that, man, no.
Yeah. Yeah. That named me, I don't know if you know this, but those spirits, when you're possessed by that, they name you. My name was Trash. And that's what they called me. And they would command me by that name of Trash. And I was Trash. I think back now over my life growing up as a young person. I mean, even middle school, elementary school, some things. The first, you know what, Brian? I'm going to tell you the first 12 years of my life, I scared of my own shadow.
Yeah.
Scared of my own shadow.
Because of what you thought you were capable of, or because of things that you had
No, because
done?
of what I experienced and the torture that comes with that. And, but then that spirit went to the next level and said, now we're going to start controlling, we're going to start hurting. And then it started, Brian. It was, I was at fights all the time. I was in trouble nonstop. My mom, I don't have much memory of her. There's something in my head tells me that she felt like people are going to think I raised you like this, And I remember my father was gone a lot. And when he did come home, I think he looked at me and wondered, what in the world? What knocked this kid in the head, But he tried to get me squared away. They tried to get me involved in athletics. I wanted nothing to do with sports. It had rules. Isn't that funny? It had rules. And I didn't want rules. And I didn't want authority on me. I've since learned that why, but anyway.
Were you fighting back at the time, or were you giving in? Were you fighting the spirit, or were you giving in?
No, I think that spirit had me a whole hook, line, and sinker, man. I spoke like terrible. Do you know, Brian, when I got saved, that's the first thing that went away from me is my foul mouth.
Just went away?
There's many, I can still tell you there's other sin carried on. I didn't truly, I want to tell you, even after 2011, I think it was 2 years later when I finally came to grips with my complete sin, because I'd asked Jesus to I was still sinning as a Christian. I mean, the most horrendous sins. And I then confessed those sins to my wife, Lily, but broke her heart. To this day, we work through that. My children, I confessed exactly who I was, my family. My father and me talked for the longest time before he died. I remember after that, my dad, I used to go pray with him. That's one of the things Jesus really taught me is how to pray. And I used to go pray with my dad. Interesting enough, I was the one who told my dad that, the results from the doctor were such that I said, Dad, you could still survive if Jesus wants you to. But based on what these doctors are saying, this is what's going to probably happen. And he looked at me and said, I'm not scared.
Yeah.
Because he had that relationship with Christ.
He did. And he's not scared. And you learned that from him as well. And walk me through, Scott. So you wake up, you're no longer cursing. You see something that you need to accept. You're still Scott Harris. You've still lived this entire life up to that moment. You went unconscious. You woke back up.
Right.
What was that like? Because now you're on purpose, and yet every single road you've built for yourself is completely off purpose.
It's right.
How do you stay and build at the same time without driving everybody and yourself nuts?
Can I share something? You've said it the best of all. Because I explained that to Lily, like when I was, I say, it's like, when I came to, Brian, like I didn't know what the Cleveland Clinic was. First off, I did not have all my memory. I didn't know initially I was married. I didn't know I had children. I didn't know I had grandchildren. I had grandchildren way back then, and I didn't know it. It's so funny how you just said that. It makes sense to me. But then Christ, he played this through my head, and then it's like everything changed. It's that now that you're conscious, right? It's like, how did I get here? I said that to Lily. And like my rings, I have these rings. And I asked him where my rings were. And Lily said, you had no rings. And I said, yes, I did. I had them when I was with Jesus because he gave these rings to me. And she says, you had no rings. Brian, every one of these rings came to me after I got here. When I got here to Ashland, Ohio, when I finally came home, I'm going to tell you something. There's clothes in my closet. They have my initials on them, right? As you can tell, I don't dress like I used to, right? And nothing fit me. And I'm thinking, how in the world did I ever wear this stuff? And this whole place was strange. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does.
It's like,
you'd build a world for yourself and you were no longer a part of that world like that.
Yes. And I've been so long with Christ, it seemed like I was so long there. This was just all foreign. It was just crazy. It was crazy. It was only like 2 years, like I said, it was 2 years later, I honestly, Brian, I wanted to go home. And when I say home, I'm going to go back. I wanted to actually make it to heaven. I didn't go to heaven by any means. That's not where I was at. That was not heaven. I tell everybody that I don't want anybody to misunderstand. We all will die one time and go to heaven. That's it. Or hell, one or the other. That's what happened. But I didn't think it was prideful, but I think it was. I then figured out Jesus had blessed me so much that I took advantage of it, and I started saying, well, I never ran in my life, Brian. Never ran in my life. I started running.
Yeah.
I gradually kicked it up. I would go 5 miles, no problem. I don't like running. I don't like it today. But
no one does.
I did
you just have to do it.
Well, and I did it because they said about, what happened to me.
Yeah.
They were telling me what I couldn't do, and I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. Because I thought if it did it, it would send me home. Mm-hmm. And I know that was so hard on Lily because they're thinking, why does this guy want to do stuff to try and jeopardize his health? Why do I jeopardize my health? I just didn't want to be here anymore. And
oh, wow.
And so then that's how I joined CrossFit. I thought if anything would get me, CrossFit would get me. And Brian, the funny thing was, it was a CrossFit, it was a thing they do every year. And we were doing it at the local gym, and I was I was judged on a Friday. And that Friday I did pretty good, but I didn't do real good. And I said, man, I'm going to go back Saturday because you can redo it on Saturday. So I went back Saturday and redid it. And a funny thing was the young man that judged me that day, he's a local firefighter. His name, Matt, he was there. Or Chris, they were down there that day. It was him, and there's a gal that was a emergency nurse. They were all working that day at this event that was going on. And so he was judging me, and so he was helping me. And I really he was a nice young man. And gosh, I did fantastic the second time. But I was tired at the end, right?
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, I'm going to walk over and sit down and get some water. So I went and walked over and sat on the ground. Brian, I remember this time like it was nothing. All of a sudden, I said, I'm going to take a nap. I laid down and died on the spot. My heart stopped again.
Again,
second time. I laid there on that floor. I laid on that floor the second time. Gosh, I don't know how long I was there. And they came, finally, the emergency squad got there. He was a paramedic. And him and her trying to get my heart started back. There wasn't a defibrillator at this event at this time. And so they're sitting there working on me, trying to get my heart started again. It wasn't happening. Paramedics finally showed up. I forget how long it took. They show up. They, use the paddles on me. And, but I woke back up then.
Okay.
And when I woke up, they had just put me in the back of the ambulance. And I woke up because right before that, Christ come to me again.
He did. See? Okay.
Comes to me again. Same bright light. Identical. It was seconds though, Brian. It wasn't a long time at all. And he said to me, Scott, call me by my name. You don't decide whether you come or go.
Wow.
I ask you to serve the gospel and the good news. I decide when you come home. And I remember I wanted him to take me so bad. He said, you're not coming home with me.
One of the biggest problems we have as managers and leaders is sometimes we're not focusing on leading and we end up doing it for our sales team. How do we coach our people to help them figure out what self-limiting belief that they have that's holding them back from achieving the levels of success that they know they're capable of? Help them flush out what we call their own head trash, that thing that's holding them back. So work with your team, lead by example, watch your team achieve greater levels of success, and watch your team grow, and more importantly, watch your company and your business grow.
You were still serving yourself, even in a better position for him, but you were still serving yourself. It was still about you.
Exactly. Thank you.
Wow.
I wake up, I tell the guys, hey, I got to get out. I got to get back to work. And they're like, oh man, we can't, we got to take you to the hospital. I said, no, we could let me out. Lily was there. She had been over having a birthday lunch with some friends. It was February, right? And that's when I confessed. And after that, that's when I ended up confessing, right? All of my sin. and I let it all out. And you know what? It's so true, because when I confessed it, like if I would say to you, "This is how I sin against you," it frees you. You know, I asked Jesus for forgiveness, but I got to ask you for forgiveness if I sin against you, Brian. And it freed me when I asked Lily for that. That spirit left me, Brian. That evil spirit never has been with me ever again. I've never sinned like I used to sin. Do I still sin? Absolutely. Don't misunderstand. But never, that sin does not possess me anymore. I'm not, that's gone now.
That
so
kind
Jesus
of
is
on
slowly
purpose sinning. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Sinning
He's
just to
peeled
sin.
that off.
Yep.
Yes. He's peeled that off. That's it.
How old were you on this second thing? So you're in the ambulance
52.
and you wake up 52. How old are you now?
64.
You don't mind me asking? 64.
No, 64.
Scott, tell me about your life then from 52 to 64. What is that purpose? What are you trying to do? What are you here for? And I'm also interested at the same time, what makes it hard? Well, serving Christ, I want to know what that means, because I think it means something different now to you than it means to anyone else who might also say it. Nothing against anybody that says it, but not everybody has been through what you're through. I want you to show us what we can aspire to. What is your purpose?
You know what, Brian? It's people. Listen, I can tell you, buddy, I see kids. I know victims.
You can just see it.
I see them. And I know it. Like I'll tell Lily sometimes, and I try not to interfere, but I watch and see, you know. And if I see something, I generally will try to talk to the parents, you know, and get a better feel for what's going on. I've talked to children. I've been invited. I've spoke to young men in prison, you know, about life, because it's like a young men here at these dealerships, Brian. I just want you, here's that purpose. Okay. It's so broad based. Truck drivers that come and drop cars off here, I've sat and prayed with. I know them now. I know their families now. I
know this about you, Scott. You would drop everything. You would drop everything you're doing. If that truck driver wanted to pray with you, you would say right now. It doesn't matter who you're sitting in front of, what you're doing, right? I mean, that's it.
Well, you have to, because I'm telling you, Christ has told me, there's been times that he's told me to interject or get involved in something, and I'm like, come on, man, I can't do that.
That's the pressure, isn't it? You said that before, Scott. You said, I don't like to get involved. I can see it in kids, and I don't like to get involved. And I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't ring true to me. What does that mean? I try not to get involved. That's got to hurt.
Well, it does. It racks your heart, man. I'm crying internally for them. And then Christ will tell me, here's how you do it.
Okay.
And then I say, well, geez, I don't want to do that, because what if people misunderstand or this, or, you know how we do, we justify our non-involvement, right?
Yep.
Brian, I can't walk away. I can't walk away. And so I do get involved. And then I'll ask them, I'll say, hey, do you mind, can I pray for you guys? And they say, well, they look at you shocked, right? And I'll say, you know what? I've had to explain. I've had trouble all my life, just about. And I just want you to understand, like, I know it, Brian. I'm telling you, I meet people, I see in them very similar things. I get talking with them. Next thing you know, they'll open up. I mean, it could be a drug addiction. It could be a sexual addiction. It could be a pornographic addiction. I'm talking young men, right? All these things come up. Like I have young men here at work. I know when Satan is after them and talking them and trying to cause complete chaos in their lives. And so I watch, and then I'll speak with them, and then we sit down and we have time. I have the best godchildren. Me and Lily have got these godchildren that we've gotten over the years, and I think about them. We pray for them every morning, just like our children and our grandchildren. We pray for them and their families, because I think Jesus does, right? He wants us to speak in each other's life about, because it helps me be accountable. Does that make sense? Like when I'm speaking into them, Jesus tells me, now see, Scott, this is how I want you to travel too. Then I want you to be the same thing you're speaking to them about. I want you to live about. And so he helps me. I can't describe it. It's really fantastic.
So, and we're running out of time, and I knew we would, and I have a feeling I just want to talk forever, but I'm not going to do that. I'm interested. I might put some words into your mouth and tell me if I'm wrong. Living on purpose is hard. Living off purpose is impossible. It'll kill you. You talked about that already. When you're not doing what you're meant to do, it doesn't work out, and it causes all this everything. Okay. So I firmly believe that. I also firmly believe that you are on purpose now. And I think your purpose is really big. Does it bother you, Scott? Is it pressure that you can only deal with one person at a time, or one group of, maybe imprisoned men at a time? And there's this fallen world feels worse than ever. Does it bother you that you're not able to make a bigger impact, or are you right on doing what you're supposed to do?
No, that's so funny you say that, because that's the biggest part about Christ tells me. We're going to work at this every day. I have some young men, some Muslim young men over there at the prison that I go visit. I've been over. I haven't been back. I'm going back soon. I had a call from the chaplain, which I never met over there at Mansi, but she called me because she says, "Hey, I've got some of these young Muslim men that you spoke to, and now they want to ask me questions about stuff." And she asked, "Would you come back over?" I said, "Absolutely, I'll come back over." So no, you can't. That's the other thing too about a purpose life, Brian. To me, it's hard sometimes, but we have to like hard, right? We have to like tough, and we have to fight through. And Christ gives us that strength. That's not. I think people are misunderstanding when you talked about Jesus. They think all meek, mild, and all this stuff. It's not about that. It's about being with Christ takes a lot more sincerity, commitment, consistency than the other way. I can tell you the other way, that was easy.
It's easy.
Misbehaving, that's so easy. That's I can tell you.
Sure is. It sure is. So one of the questions I always ask folks at the end of the show, and I think it's always brings up a different answer that I never expect. What's the hurdle? What's the pressure that's on the horizon that's coming that wants to knock you off course? You're trying to do your thing. What are you going to have to overcome in the future that you can see to continue to stay on purpose?
Because I think there's so much we're seeing today. I'll sum it up this way. I met a young man, a Muslim, while we were traveling, me and Lily. He liked my dog. He's from my Rottweiler. And this young man is from probably the Eastern Bloc. And my dog is a Serbian Rottweiler. They're bred in Serbia. They're a breed of Rottweiler there. And this young man, I think, is probably from there because he fell in love with Bowie. Now, Bowie, he's not going to let him pet him or anything, but he's telling me what a great dog and stuff. We get talking, and then the next morning, that was it, right? We just have a transfer. Because I wasn't going to talk to him, Brian. That's another thing. I was not going to end up talking to him at that point because I didn't want to have a bad engagement. And the dog was not going to be real friendly with him. But Jesus says, "Hey, Scott, slow down. Let's talk, right? Let's do our thing." So I did. And I kept Bowie back, and Lily was right off the side, and we were fine. The next morning, me and Lily are over there. This young man's out, and he's on his knees, and he's facing, he's facing east. He's praying. They'll get on their carpet, man. They'll get right down and pray. I think that's the biggest hurdle going forward. I'm allowed to speak about Jesus. I'm allowed to be bold about Jesus, and I'm allowed to do it everywhere I go. I'm allowed to pray with you in public, and I pray in public all the time. And I have people sometimes will say, "Oh man, he's praying in public." I'm going to pray in public. Yeah. And it's a big hurdle because we're hearing from society today that me and you are not allowed as Christians to be obvious. I'm going to be obvious, Brian.
Scott, that is the most amazing thing. I was sitting here wondering, how am I going to end this conversation? Because I want people to know that not everyone is like, I'm the last one out of the boat. Scott, I'm a Christian, but man, if God says, "You know what, just throw everything away and go do what I tell you to do," I'm like, no, I'm afraid. I think you're one of the first people out of the boat. You've had a great opportunity to become that, but not everybody's in that same spot. And the thing I want people to know as we end is, regardless of your religion, regardless of your thought process, regardless of what you think you're trying to accomplish on this earth, there's something to learn from someone who's been near death twice, has uncovered the demons that held him, and is now on purpose for a better thing. And you can call it what you want. And I know, Scott, you call it the grace of God, and I know what I call it, and we all have our lives. Here's what I want people to know. When people reach out to you, Scott, and I know you love to talk to people, here's what I want them to know. When they talk to you, when they talk to Scott Harris, they're going to get an opportunity to talk. And they'll be talking to someone who will listen, and to someone who's not going to ram stuff down your throat to get you to go his way. He seriously, honestly, God wants to help, whether he's going to sell you a car or whether he's going to bring you to Jesus or just help your life where you need to be. That's what I want people to know about you, Scott. And I want to thank you for doing it. If someone did want to reach out to you under those same ideas, how can Scott Harris help me?
Well,
how would they do that?
You could call me at 419-651-5681. That's my cell. My email is sharris, all lowercase, SHARRIS at billharrisauto.com. Again, it's just sharris at billharrisauto.com. You can stop at the dealership. Everybody, they can always get me. Come to my coach. Me and Lily are always here. And that's another thing. Sometimes the conversation does take a bit, because I found sometimes I've got to sit and listen the first time. We just listen.
We're all in different spots.
Yeah. And I might listen to a person a couple hours and we'll say, okay, hey, great. This is where we're at. We'll give hugs. Let's get back together. And then we can really get into further, So yeah, absolutely, man. Let's take time. Let's help each other out. I love what you're doing with this.
Oh, well, you just said that's what we're all about. We're all about helping people out. And I firmly believe that people are in different places where they are. They're in different ages. They've had different experiences. They have different goals. They have different, but the one thing that keeps us tied together is that we all have a purpose. It's not the same purpose, but we all have a purpose. That's what the show is all about.
Absolutely.
We have a purpose.
Absolutely.
And I think if you can find that purpose, and I don't think it's hard to realize, to sit down for a couple of seconds and have an honest conversation with yourself, to know what you're meant to be. It doesn't mean you're going to go do it. It doesn't mean you have the strength or the fortitude or the guts or even the conviction to do it. But we know what we're here for. I do believe
absolutely.
That. And I think this show and your appearance on the show, and then all the ways that you talk to other people and do things that you do, help to find those purposes for people, help to put them in place, and maybe make this world exactly what it's meant to be. And so I believe in truth, and I believe that we've shared some of it today. And I thank you, Scott Harris, for being a part of our show.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, brother. I appreciate everything.
You're the best. Folks, if you're wondering, is that guy for real? Yep. He is. He's absolutely for real. And I think it would be good if you would look into who he's all about. We didn't even get a chance, Scott, to talk about your dad and the amazing things that his purpose and the things that he was able to help me do in my life. And maybe that's another show at another point. So I think about him often. I think about him often. And I'm thankful for your whole entire family. That's a different topic,
thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Folks, that's Scott Harris. He's the owner of Bill Harris Auto Center, 3 locations in Ashland. As you can tell from listening to that show, that's not exactly what he wants to talk to you about. He wants to talk to you about purpose and being the very, very best person you can be on purpose, the way your life was meant to be. So I thank you to Scott Harris for being a part of our show. This show is brought to you in partnership with Sandler by the Ruby Group. And I am proud to say that they are partners with our show and have been for a long time. We both believe in the same kinds of things, and that's what they're all about. Sellers are under pressure to perform, and Sandler helps you to succeed on purpose. You will find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at brianmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. We do this every week, and we will see you next time on Purpose.